Welcome to You Don't Know Ball. Today we're going to be talking about 4 NFL teams with the most to prove in 2024. If you don't know ball and want to know ball, be sure to subscribe, leave a like. Let us know in the comments what team you think has the most to prove in 2024. Dobbs, starting out at number 4, who do we have?
So we got the Dolphins at number 4. And the Dolphins, I don't think this one doesn't really take much explanation, right? Like the Dolphins are a team that hasn't won a playoff game in, if I remember what Mike McDaniel said, what is it? How many years is it? Let me just don't give me a fact check here, Hunter.
Yeah.
But I know it is an egregious amount of years for an NFL fan base.
December 30th, 2000.
Okay, so we're on a 24-year drought, which is insane. On top of that, they have a really, contrary to recent popular belief. I don't know what's going on with you guys. I'm checking the comments and I'm seeing a lot of comments like the Dolphins have a really good roster. I don't know why everyone's starting to get on this train that the Dolphins are they're overrated. You look at this roster and this is a loaded roster with a very hyped up head coach who was brought in to lead this team on a deep playoff run. There's pressure on the Dolphins. There's pressure on Mike McDaniel. There's a lot of pressure on Tua. I mean, there's pressure across this whole team. And as a unit, when you haven't won in 24 years, that speaks for itself to me.
No, I think the biggest thing, too, is with the people who like to down talk that the Dolphins aren't kind of built to win. Well, in my opinion, what are they doing then? Why'd you get Tyreek Hill? Why'd you draft Jalen Waddle? Why did you go out and get Teron Armstead? These are winning moves. These are not just I'm okay with being 9-7 and losing in the first round. These are moves that you make to win a Super Bowl. And I think there's a lot of things to prove because I feel like the Dolphins have been a very, very hyped up team for the last couple of years, and they actually have accomplished nothing. In reality, yes, they've been a very electric offense that always seems to sputter out at the end of the year. It always seems to just stop. So, in my opinion, if you get Aaron Brewer, who was one of the better centers in free agency, you have a serviceable right tackle who you extended. You have Teron Armstead, who is injury prone and yes, getting older. What are we supposed to do? I understand you lose Christian Wilkins, but you get Jalen Ramsey just to be okay? My thing is, the Dolphins have to win a playoff game this year, or in my opinion, and if Tua does not play well, I think the franchise is damn near they have to restart some things, because if Tua doesn't play well, then you have to go find a new quarterback, and Tyreek Hill is going to be 31.
No, 100%. And I was going to say too, to your point about it's really good. And I would have said this if you didn't say it, but you made me think of it. As much as I think everybody that follows him, the Dolphins, if you know his story, right, you got some love for Mike McDaniel, right? Mike McDaniel, good, fun dude. But objectively, business speaking here, look, you're a Shanahan descendant. And what do we expect from Shanahan descendants? We expect electric offense, which to your point, they give when it's fun and when we're earlier in the year and when it doesn't matter. But now we're gone 2 years in a row. When it matters, that offense isn't doing anything. And it doesn't matter if you're having fun and we look good in October, November, and December. It's about how we look in January and February. And if this Dolphins offense can't look how it does in October, November, in January, February, all of a sudden we're going to have questions not only about, to your point about the future decisions, we're not going to have just questions about this roster. We're going to have questions about Mike McDaniel. And I don't want to get to that point. I love Mike McDaniel, even though I'm not a Dolphins fan. So I hope the Dolphins can turn it around towards the later part of the year. But you're spot on. If they don't win a playoff game this year, there will be decisions that have to be made.
Moving into number 3, we have the Cleveland Browns. So my opinion with the Cleveland Browns is, you are kind of dealt with issues ever since the Deshaun Watson trade. And we know that the cap hits starting to kick up for Deshaun pretty shortly here. And you have a really stacked defense, a really good defense. And the offensive line is really good. The weapons I don't necessarily love, but you do have a certified number 1 in Amari Cooper, and you do have Nick Chubb. I know he's coming off a very scary injury, so he may not be that guy. and you went far with Joe Flacco last year. But my thing is, I think everyone thought last year would be a wash. And when it wasn't, it almost put more pressure on the Browns this year, because if Deshaun Watson does not replicate what Joe Flacco did and bring them as far as Joe Flacco did, especially with Nick Chubb being out, there's going to be some very, very, very serious questions at the quarterback position, because I think after seeing what happened last year, it's not a Kevin Stefanski issue.
I was going to say, if anything, we're at a point where the two people on this entire roster and just team organization that are safe, Myles Garrett and Stefanski. Because outside of them,
Andrew Berry as well.
I say Andrew Berry's done a hell of a job too. I have to give credit where it's due. But you could also say Andrew Berry's the guy that decided to give Deshaun Watson 200 and whatever
but
guaranteed.
Would you argue that is? I feel like that maybe came from ownership.
No, very, very well could have as well, though. Again,
but he still had to sign off. I know it's his job and the owner does what he does, but I understand what you're saying. Yes,
because and to your point, this defense, that's kind of really what it comes down to, though. Is this defense with this offense and this offensive line that is still put together they're not the same old line they were a year or two ago. They're getting older. They're regressing a little, but there's still a hell of an O-line no matter how you want to slice it. And, to your point about Nick Chubb, yeah, we don't know. But, Jerome Ford popped in and played really good football in wake of him, right? These backups, they stepped up. They played good ball. And you bring in Jerry Jeudy on what I presume is a heavy overpay.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Right, I could be wrong, and he could end up proving all the doubters, as I said, the doubters wrong. But if he doesn't, right, all of a sudden you have money tied up in a lot of areas that maybe per se you don't want to have money tied up, especially if Deshaun doesn't play good again. And if they don't make the playoffs or make a deep playoff run this year, much like we were just saying, about the Dolphins, there will be a lot of questions that have to be answered in Cleveland. The big difference is that it's not going to be Kevin Stefanski answering the questions, at least as long as the Browns ownership group has a tad of brain cells up there. I mean, this is not, to your point, this is not a Stefanski issue.
Moving in to number 2, we have the Dallas Cowboys. I think this is such a trying season for the Cowboys, Dobbs, because Dak's got to get paid. CD's got to get paid. Micah's got to get paid. You don't really have an answer at running back. The O-line has question marks. You lost Dan Quinn, so you don't know what this defense is going to be. And Mike McCarthy, I think, is on the hot seat. So they are another team that has really accomplished nothing after being one of the most hyped up teams these last couple of years, similar to the Dolphins. And I just think it's this to me is the year where it's last year everyone was oh, they're on the hot seat. And I've said this before on the show. I think the NFL operates on a year late. So whatever everyone's opinions are, those don't come true, or the things don't happen until the next year. And I feel like that's where we're at with the Cowboys at this point. I don't think if Dak performs, I think Dak may be gone. I think McCarthy might be gone. And I think this team might just kind of try to flip over and do something else, something new.
Well, yeah, at this point, because there are so many contingencies and just weird things about the Cowboys, right? There really are. It's really weird, to me at least, that Mike McCarthy got another year to be the coach of this team. It's really weird that Jerry Jones was talking all off season about how they were going to really improve the roster and all in. And it was the most all out off season we've ever seen from him. It's really weird that they lost Dan Quinn and now they have to completely replace it on, to your point, where you're going to have a lot of guys you got to pay very soon, where you don't want to be having them transition into new systems. There's a lot of weird stuff. And again, the Dan Quinn thing's out of their control, but bottom line is it still affects the team. And I think, when you look at the Cowboys roster, the problem is that, yeah, this is a roster, no matter how you slice it, this roster is ready to go compete and to go win a Lombardi if they can just put it all together. But that's the problem. And as every Cowboys fan knows, and not only that, they already have been spoiled with the myriad of championships they won in a short time. So now you're a Cowboys fan, you don't accept anything less than championship expectations. That's a good thing to have. It's a good thing. It's a good pressure to put on your team. But the problem is that they've been applying that pressure for 15 plus years straight, as we've seen it with our own eyes here, Hunter, and nothing has changed. The Tony Romo era feels basically at this point the exact same as every era that's past it, which is crazy. But it's no disrespect to Cowboys fans. It is objectively true. You guys have felt like the same team for like 10 years in a row. When does it change? Years. That's where the pressure comes from.
I mean, you got to think about it. Like, the reason I think also they have the most to prove is the head coach is on the hot seat at the same point where their franchise quarterback may be gone. My thing is, it seems like a whole clean house situation if this doesn't work. CD, Micah, they're getting re-signed. I don't know how you let CD go unless someone throws you like two or three firsts. And you're not going to do that if you got to pay the guy. So I think my thing is you kind of have to do something this year. If not, I think the Cowboys are going to be in for Trey Lance season 2025.
That would be absolutely wild. But again, I think Dak has done enough that if he can have a year similar to last year, I'm still in on Dak. But
I'm not out on Dak.
Your point, like we always say, though,
I think that's a Cowboy thing.
It's about how you're playing in January and February. Dak has never shown that he's going to be that guy in January and February. That is objectively true.
Dak Prescott is going to be a Las Vegas Raider next year.
That is fucking crazy. Hold on, let's write this down.
No, what's crazier? Number one, the New York Jets. The New York Jets have the most approved odds. I don't think it's arguable. I really don't think it's arguable. They have one of the best defenses in the league. They have Breece Hall. They have Garrett Wilson. They brought in Mike Williams. They drafted Malachi Corley, right? You have Aaron Rodgers, who is a Hall of Fame quarterback. You've upgraded the line drastically. Aaron Rodgers has not been showing up to certain team activities. So there's a lot of talk. If this season does not go well, if the New York Jets do not win a playoff game, damn near 2, and Aaron Rodgers does not come back next year, this whole Aaron Rodgers experiment will be a joke. Robert Saleh will be gone. Joe Douglas will be gone, in my opinion. I know Saleh for sure. Douglas probably. But it's just like, you have to show us something. Like, this isn't the Cowboys where they're just consistently good and then they lose early. You went all in. You threw Zach Wilson to the fire. He was cooked. You couldn't play him anymore. You bring in Aaron Rodgers, pops his Achilles, which, in your defense, you don't know is going to happen. But it is also your problem that you didn't get viable backups for the O-line who are constantly injured. You didn't get a viable backup quarterback. You ruined the redshirt Zach Wilson plan. So this year has to be the year for the Jets where they at least do something or get close, or else, in my opinion, it's a massive failure.
No, there's no other way to put it. You're spot on. About Saleh, at this point, can we say that Jeff Ulbrich is doing more for this team than Robert Saleh? Like, Jeff Ulbrich might be the one, I'll say, the one guy that might be safe across this. Well, because you're the Jets and you're looking at Ulbrich, how are you going to get rid of him? I mean, they've been playing their ass off for this guy. But outside of that, there will be a lot of turnover if the Jets don't, to your point. Fuck one playoff game. You're right. Damn, you're 2 or 3. I mean, this is a roster that was constructed to win the Super Bowl, not to show up and then get pissed out of the next round, like so many other teams do over and over again. That's not what the Jets signed up for. The Jets haven't had success in so long that when you go this all in, it's kind of like the whole, the philosophy in life, the harder you love, the harder the loss is going to hurt, but at least you gave it your all. Well, it's kind of the same thing with this to an extent. Like, the Jets went all in. Like, they went all the way in. So if you don't get all the way there, the backlash is going to be that much stronger, because same way that you love as much, you lose it. You went all in and you lost it. Like, if you go all in and the fans expect a championship and you come out with zilch, there's going to be a lot of pain and a lot of frustration, and that's inevitable, especially in the New York market. So the Jets undoubtedly put themselves in the group where they are in the most pressured spot. There's no doubt about it. This defense is absolutely loaded. The best linebacking core in the whole league. It's not even up for debate. You could argue the best D-line in the league, truthfully, at this point. I mean, you could argue it. I wouldn't agree, but you could argue it. The best DB room probably You could argue that as well, but Sauce Gardner probably gives them the edge. And then, like you said, the offense is certainly not the offense we saw last year. And if Aaron Rodgers can't lead them to a playoff game or two at least is what I'm saying. Like you said, we're seeing a whole new Jets organization very soon, especially Joe Douglas. You're out.
This is giving me the vibes of if they don't win it this year and this year goes bad and they let go of the coach. It strikes me as a team that could go downhill pretty quickly, not based off talent, but just off like, well, guys, we had the closest chance we were ever going to get, and now these next couple years are just going to be hell. Like honestly, like that's the type of vibes that I get from this Jets team.
No, yeah. And they would be in a position too, to your point, like where all of a sudden the guys that you have to pay isn't even in a window where it makes sense to pay them what you're going to have to pay them. And other teams are going to say, yeah, no, that guy though, I could like really use him for my Super Bowl window. You know what I mean? All of a sudden we're going to be in a situation like that where the Jets are losing their young guys. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the Jets because it's very black and white. There's really no in between.
Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you don't know ball and want to know ball, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, let us know in the comments what team you think is under the most pressure or has the most to prove in 2024. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your night.